cheers.
Oh, cheers.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. We are welcome to the
Living Your Best Life with Valerie and Bennie
podcast. That's right. So we're really glad you're here. This is the podcast where brother and sister.
We are the brother and sister.
Yeah, as opposed to the other people that come on the show later. No, just the two of us. So it's a brother and sister podcast where we discuss all kinds of topics that hopefully are just going to make you live your best life. So that's the idea, that's the goal, and hopefully it's something that you enjoy and you can pass on to your friends as well. And you get to know us a little bit because we usually do a little story, which I'm hoping that...
Yeah, this is something like, I was thinking about it because I was listening to a few of our podcasts recently that we've done quite a while back, because we recorded a lot and just had them in the bank for a little bit, just trying to figure out how we were going to put them on the platform, where platform and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of our conversations are exactly what we chat about in these podcasts.
Yeah.
And so we just decided one day, let's just do a podcast about how
living your best life.
Living your best life. And if you haven't listened to another podcast before, what it is one of us comes in with a subject and the other one has no idea what we're going to talk about. And then we just literally have a conversation about it.
Yeah. And we don't intend to be
experts
on the subject matter. We just intend to be people that are in their 50s that have lived a little life and have studied things, but not necessarily experts. So we don't want you to be thinking like that. Sometimes we're going to give you some advice or some books that have been helpful to us, and hopefully you can use those and implement them in your life. But honestly, it's hopefully just to get to know us and ultimately for you to live your best life. That's our goal.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
How was your week?
It was a really good week. I mean, I can't think of anything that wasn't good about my week. It was a really good week. It was a very, very fluid week.
You know what's interesting for me is that I have, of course, I was a pastor for so long, and when I did that, I never stopped thinking about that. I didn't realize how much I always thought about my job when I didn't realize how much until I wasn't doing it anymore. And then I got other jobs and I realized, oh my gosh, you can actually clock out, and you're like, you don't have to think about it. And even if you do think about it, you think about it in a different way, that at least I did. And it's largely because I wasn't good at self-care. And so there's other issues. I'm not trying to say that you have to be that way, but that's the way I was. Well, what now is interesting is that I'm getting my master's degree. And what's fascinating about getting my master's degree is I'm constantly thinking about getting like homework and reading and this and that. I'm constantly thinking about stuff, and I have a 3-week break right now. I'm in this break.
So nice. Yeah.
And it's weird because I'm finding myself going, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Because I always have to do something. I always have to do something, some reading, some paper, some discussion, some whatever. And so right now I still read a lot. So I still believe it or not, I have a bunch of things that were optional reading, and I'm reading those right now. Yeah. And it's because I like what I'm learning. And so I'm reading all this stuff, and I actually set goals for myself to finish things. I'm stupid. So, but
it's funny because we are a lot alike, because I set goals for myself with certain things. Like, this sounds so weird, but going to the grocery store, like I'm going to get...
I really thought you were going to say like going to the bathroom. That's what I really thought you were going to say. That's what I thought you were going to say. Okay, going to the grocery store.
No, bathroom's clockwork. I don't need to worry about that. No. But no, I am very, well, you set goals for yourself for optional reading, and I do the same with like my grocery list. Like I'm so bad because I'm still a paper and pen girl. I write everything down, and it has to be in the category of where you'll find it in the grocery store. And then I set myself a goal of getting everything in that spot so I don't have to go back to that spot. You know what I mean? And so when I mark off everything that it's done, I feel so good. I'm like, oh my God, I accomplished my goal. And if I have to go back, oh my gosh, I forgot, and run back, then I'm like, oh man.
Okay, now something that's huge for me with you, but we've talked about this in previous podcasts. Yeah. You have a tiny bit of a
OCD.
OCD.
Yeah.
What is that called? I was going to say occupation. What is it?
obsessive compulsive disorder.
But why I say that's funny is because I'll never forget Patty telling me this, that you guys went for a walk one time and you were walking on the Strand, and she goes, so Patty walked up and it was like 2 feet away from this concrete wall. Patty was 2 feet away from the concrete wall, and she's like, Patty turns around, which I've noticed that I have a tendency to want to at least get, like if we're walking to the end of something, I want to get to that, like the crack that represents the end. And she starts turning around and you go, no, we have to touch the wall.
And it was literally only 2 more feet, like 1 step, 2 step touch. And I'm like, no, we still have to touch it. It doesn't matter.
You would have felt incomplete if you didn't touch it. You would have felt like
100%.
I completely failed.
Yeah.
Peter, we didn't really walk the wall.
I know.
I didn't touch the wall.
We had to touch the wall.
Yeah. Well, I really find myself in this weird place where there's times where I'm like, wow. So I've been able to, I think I told you this. So I got this 24-hour fitness membership for 2 reasons. They have a pool. And then the other reason is because in case I can't, I work out here and we live in a conjunto, ¿cómo se dice?
Oh my goodness.
A townhome. No, but that's not what I'm trying to say. A complex.
Yes.
So we live in a complex. And so I can't work out really early. I can't work out really late.
Because you guys don't have like an actual garage. It's more carport. So that
it's underneath our place, but it's it's not, it's exposed so people can hear the noise and all that kind of stuff. So so if I have to work out really early, then I'll go to 24 hours. Well, but really the reason why I wanted it was for the pool. So all of a sudden I find myself sometimes when I'm done with clients, I can actually go because normally I like to go downstairs. I'm done in 45 minutes, like completely practically. And I could shower and I could literally go downstairs and be done, even showered within an hour and 15 minutes or something like that. And whereas obviously if I have to drive somewhere and go, blah, 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 it's like a couple hour deal. And so, I've been learning how to swim. I know that sounds funny, but I've always known how to swim. But I realized something. When I go to a hotel pool and stuff like that, you play with your kids and I throw them and we tackle each other. You don't swim.
No,
you really don't
Well,
swim.
this is funny that you're bringing up swimming because
it is hilarious to the listeners.
Well, I know. And I'm thinking like, okay, we're not going to bore you guys. I promise, but we probably will. But anyway, you brought up swimming in one of the podcasts because I was just listening to it before we went on our trip on our cruise, and you talked about swimming laps in the pool.
Yeah.
And I said, there's too many kids in that big pool. You're not going to be able to swim. You go, no, the adult pool. And I'm like, you're going to swim laps in the adult pool? You're like, well, I'm going to try. I'm like, so long story short, do you remember the adult pool on the Disney cruise?
Yes.
It was like the size of a peanut. I mean, it was so small. It was just basically sitting there with a cocktail.
Reach across. Yes. You could reach across. Yeah, no, I saw the pool and I went,
that's not going to happen.
That. Yeah, that was so funny because I really did think, oh, so that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And then you go to the other pool where you perhaps could do it, and there's a kid every 5 feet. You'd just be swimming on top of the kids and their poop. So that's another story.
But you know what's really interesting? I said I had a really good week, but I'm going to say this really quickly because I don't know if this is going to tie into any of our podcasts ever, but we honestly don't know what goes on. This is like going to be like we're bringing the mood down a second. I was just talking to a friend.
Let's just clarify. You're bringing the mood down.
I'm going to bring the mood
down. I'm over here. I'm a bystander.
No, but I was just talking to a friend before I came over here, and I hadn't seen her in a while, and I'm not going to, I don't even know if she'll listen to this podcast. I don't know. But anyway, I'm not going to try to bring any attention to who it actually is. But I learned that she's filing for divorce. Mm. And it's weird because you would never know that that would have gone on in her life. Like you just so the reason I'm bringing this up is because you just never know what someone is going through. And after she gave me a little bit of the detail and the background and why she decided to file for divorce, you're just like, wow, I would have never thought that. So
yeah,
it just gives you insight on like looking into people's lives and going, well, we talked about this before on podcasts where the grass is always greener.
Yeah.
It's really only greener where you water it, but you tend to think someone else's grass is greener and you really don't know.
Right.
You do not know what's going on behind closed doors. Yeah. So,
well, what I will say just for the listener, if you're out there, so that has nothing to do with the podcast, but what I am going to say to you out there right now is take a deep breath with me so that you can clear your mind. And I would also say, hey, just put two things that you're grateful for, because I bet you're grateful for something, even if you're going through a hard time in your marriage. Do just something you're grateful for right now and like get in the right mind, because we're going to change subjects. We're going to go a different direction. Are you cool with that? You're looking at me really weird.
Well, because I'm like, do I need to take a deep breath right now?
Yeah, I told you to.
Okay.
So if we take a deep breath, it does something to serotonin. I think that's a real word.
Oh, it is a real word. I just talked about serotonin.
Oh, okay.
Smiling.
Smiling, that's right. Smiling does that.
Exactly.
I saw that on your Instagram post.
Smile. Yes.
So smile is good, serotonin, but breathing does something as well with that. I'm not sure exactly, but it's very, very helpful. And gratitude is huge. You got to have we have a whole podcast on that. That's another story. All right, what we're gonna do today is something so besides my schoolwork, I like to read a little bit of other stuff. And somebody put me onto this book called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Oh, okay. I'm checking out right now.
Can I just tell you, I didn't know what it was going to be about, and but a friend of mine who knew I rode a motorcycle said you should check this book out. And so I've been reading it. It's one of these books that I have 2 books that I'm reading at the same time, and I've been reading them for 6 or 8 months. So it's like I just take a chapter or so every once in a while, and that's it. So it's not like something where I sit down and crank it out. This is not about motorcycle riding.
Oh, okay, good.
It's really actually quite fascinating, but I'm not going to get into the whole story. There is a quote that's in there that made me think about a lot of the things that are going on in our world today. So it's kind of long. I might have to say it twice. By the way, the book is by Robert, Pirsig. I'm going to say Robert M Pirsig, Pirsig.
Okay.
I don't know quite how you say that.
Can you write that down so we can put it in the show notes?
Yeah, it's
in
a great
description.
It's a great. It honestly is a great book. I've really enjoyed it, but it's deep. Like it's one of those things. I mean, there's certain parts where it's kind of deep. So here's the quote. I know I'm going to have to read it to you twice, which is okay. Okay. You are never dedicated to something you have never dedicated to something you have complete confidence in. No one is fanatically shouting that the sun is going to rise tomorrow. They know it's going to rise tomorrow. When people are fanatically dedicated to political or religious faiths or any other kinds of dogma or goals, it's always because these dogmas or goals are in doubt. One more time. You are never...
No, you don't have to. I got it.
Well,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
All right. You are never dedicated to something you have complete confidence in. No one is fanatically shouting that the sun is going to rise tomorrow. They know it's going to rise tomorrow. When people are fanatically dedicated to political or religious faiths or any other kinds of dogma or goals, it's always because these dogmas or goals are in doubt. So the question for you, and I've just thrown this on you, so please, I think it's just a matter of thinking out loud, because I'm certainly not, there could be the thing that you start talking now, and then by the end of the podcast, you're like, have a different opinion. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. But I read that, and it kicked my butt. It really, because I just thought, oh my goodness, that there's a lot going on in the world politically. We are not a political podcast. Valerie and I actually agree on a lot of things and don't agree on certain things.
Right.
And so so this is not going to be a political agenda. And I'm a God-fearing person, and so this is not about trying to set. I'm going to be very clear that that's who I am. We're both God-fearing people. So so this is not going to be to try to bash anybody. That's not the point.
Exactly. But
we are in a world right now where it is so polarized, where you got these folks on this side and these folks on this side, and there's so much going on that when I read this quote, I thought, oh my goodness, I don't even remember when the book was written, but it just kind of kicked my butt.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was written during social media times or if it was written before, but what I just know is it just resonated with me quite a bit. So I'm curious what your first thoughts are when you hear that and what you're thinking.
Well, you know what's interesting is the whole phrase about the sun rising tomorrow and being emphatic about it. You know, a lot of times in my world, because I'm very in a health and wellness world, we always do say things like that. Like, no matter what, the sun is going to always rise tomorrow, right? But you don't have to be so emphatic that you're constantly throwing that out there. The difference between in reading that quote, and I get it, I totally understand the point of it, but the difference in hearing that quote is that the sun will rising tomorrow is a fact. Political and religious thoughts are opinions, right? They're not facts, because somebody's political opinion about something doesn't mean it's fact. It just means that's their opinion on it.
Right.
Okay. And the same thing with religion. You know, somebody might believe something else because of whatever reason. So that was my first thought. Like, the sun is going to rise tomorrow, and you don't have to be emphatic about it because that is fact. It is going to do that. The dogma of what's happening in our world today, people spew it out emphatically because I think there is doubt, because it is an opinion. It is not fact.
Right. And the thing that's interesting, though, about it for me is that we think by virtue of yelling or being louder or being more mean or whatever it might be. I'm not sure what word you want to use, but we think somehow by being even more polarizing that's going to bring people over to your side. So I don't know. I struggled with this because I think there are some things that are. So there's a lot of things going on in my mind, and when I read this, so one thing is the obvious thing. Okay, we've got the political right and the political left, and there's people that are way far on both sides, and they yell and they scream, and honestly, they're just polarizing people. If you agree with them, then you love them and you embrace them, but then you automatically dislike the other side. It's like, and not only that, I mean, see, this is the problem for me is I agree with certain things on both sides.
Right.
And the problem is in our current climate, you can't, you're not quote unquote allowed to do that. Cause it's like, well, no, if you believe that, then you got to believe this. Yeah. So there's a lot of different things that are weird for me. But then I got into even more practical things of, you know, does this eliminate passion? Because I believe in passion. Like, I believe that it's important that we're passionate people. I think passionate people live more fulfilling lives.
Okay, so you just said the key word. They live more fulfilling lives. They're not prophesizing it. Like, so another thought was like, okay, let's just say for a religious thing, if somebody is walking around all day long preaching the Bible, handing out tracts, which I don't even know if that's a thing anymore, that back in the 80s and 90s that were handing out the tracts and stuff, you know, quoting verses, doing this and that and the other, but they have a hypocrisy style lifestyle. You know, for me, spewing I keep saying spewing, I don't know why I'm saying that, but like saying all the words, trying to tell somebody that Christianity, I mean, in quotes, because I'm just using that as an example of religion, this is the way to go, and then yet they're not living the life of a Christian person. See, that's where I don't understand how people can be so loud, because for me, the actions are more key than the words.
Right.
And so I think you live the life, and you don't necessarily have to be loud about it, because you're an example of it.
I think that's actually loud.
Okay, saying the words loudly.
I think yeah, exactly. I think when you're living the life and when you're actually experiencing what I think God intended for us to experience, that says something about who you are, and instead of it being about what is see, I don't want to put on like all of a sudden this is like a total preaching a sermon, but I know that there are certain ways of thinking, whether it's political or whether it's spiritual, it doesn't matter. But there's like a line, and there's a right way to do things and there's a wrong way to do things. And you're either on this side or you're on the other side, but you can't. And if you're on the other side, then you're not for me. And if you're on this side, then you are with me. Mm-hmm. And it's like there's like this band, this like army. Instead of it being like there is no line, mm-hmm. why don't we just be walking toward the same ultimate result that we want to achieve, whatever that result is.
Right.
And so I think I really believe earnestly that that most, I'm not going to say all, because I do think that some people are just whacked out. But I think most politicians, for instance, really do what's best for the country. Mm-hmm. I think they really do want what's best for the country. I think some of them do want power. I think some of them do want their own authority. Some of them do want their own
obviously there is a lot of corruption, but at the end of the day, there are the people that really do want what's best. And they think their way is the best.
Exactly. And I think they're really rooting for it and they're trying to get things done. What's interesting is if we all had that mindset of, yes, we all ultimately want to achieve what is right, what's the goal. If we all just ultimately wanted to get to that end goal, then we would see a lot more results. But instead it's like, no, you're in their camp. And I don't even care if what you're saying makes any sense. Yeah. I can't agree with it because that might affect my votes and it might affect your votes and give you and and it's like we really don't live in this we live in a world where things don't get done because I can't pretend to be on your side, and I don't know that it was always that way. I'm too young. I really mean that.
I mean, I don't think it was, because I think social media plays a part of it. You know what I mean? Because I think we talked about this before. I think that like politically, or maybe even religion wise, I don't know, but politically, people can throw things out there and then not worry about what people think or say. They throw it, they walk away from it.
I see what you're saying. Because in the old days, you would have to say it to your face.
Yeah.
Or you would write them a letter.
Yeah.
Or you would do so, but it's like you sign it.
Yeah.
And nowadays it's like, oh, I put it in Twitterland or X land. I don't know what that's called.
Yeah.
And you throw it out there and then it's like you don't have to argue about it. Well, then the other thing though is that I remember one time I put something on my Facebook. I can't remember what it was. I think I said Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. I think that's all I said was Black Lives Matter. Uh-huh. And then, of course, I have a lot of people on the Christian right who follow me. I was a pastor for a gazillion years, and they said, and a ton of people were saying all lives matter. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, okay, then you agree. Black lives matter.
Right.
That's right. I mean, that was like my thought was, oh, you agree with me then. Right. We totally agree because all lives matter. And I just happened to highlight a specific group. Yeah. So I'm just saying, okay, well, you agree then that Black Lives Matter.
Right.
And then their response was, no, all lives matter. And I'm like, okay, you agree with me. I'm like trying to get them to understand that but see, for them, that phrase
and that whole
is
time,
political.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that whole time, if you didn't say it properly or the right way, it offended one side or the other. Yeah. And I say side, and that's so sad. Why is there a side on that? If all lives matter, it shouldn't matter if you say Black Lives Matter, right? And so...
Well, and then what happened for me is that I did have police friends who I think stopped following me and stuff because all of a sudden they thought I was saying it was against the police. And it's like, I'm not. Well, I never said that. I never said that.
And to that point, I saw a lot of people that wrote Blue Lives Matter, meaning the police, and people were so mad about that. And it was like, come on, guys. I mean, and I get it, especially during the whole time over 2020, 2021 with everything going on. It even became more of like people were saying, and I get this part of it, that people were saying Black Lives Matter, but there's an organization, Black Lives Matter, that was corrupt. And I don't know if I'm opening a can of worms or not, but I think that it was exposed that monies were not going, that people were donating. I for one donated money and to Black Lives Matter during all this time. And then they were saying the money isn't going to actual Black families. It's going to the organizers of the whole organization, Black Lives Matter. Yeah. And so they were finding different ways to go around that. But all that to say is that people sadly take sides to things, not just hearing the whole generalization about it. You know, it had to be offensive if you didn't say just Black Lives Matter to certain people. And then some people would say, well, it's offensive if you don't say all lives matter. It's offensive if you say, you know, and it's like, oh my gosh, why is there a side to
Why
this?
does it have to be that because I say Black Lives Matter, it means that blue lives don't? And that's just not the case. I never, ever even remotely thought that. All I was saying is that I do believe that Black Lives Matter. And what I do believe is, what I do think is interesting about that whole movement, which I'm going to, I guess is a kind of a tangent from the quote, is I remember back in the day, Rush Limbaugh, you know, when he was still alive and he was doing his radio show, people would give him heat because he didn't put the liberal perspective on. I mean, at all. He did not put the liberal perspective on. And it was like, I'm a conservative TV or radio host, and deal with it. Don't listen to me if you don't want to listen to me. And then what he said is, this was equal time. And his philosophy was, the other media is covering the left. So watch that
side.
So if you want the left side, then you can watch them. If you want the right side, you can watch me. Now, what I felt like with Black Lives Matter is just that. They're probably going to be completely offended that I brought up Rush Limbaugh and brought it to them. But what I'm saying is that what we're trying to identify is the fact that this is a fact in this country, that Black lives have not mattered to the degree as others. And that's just all there is to it. This is not negotiable. This is just a reality. And so we're highlighting that by saying Black Lives Matter. But by saying that, we're not equally saying, well, white lives aren't as important.
Doesn't matter.
And Mexicans, us, are not as important. Or police are not as important. And we've recognized that. I mean, there were cities that decided, you know, we're going to go a different direction, and they've all gone back. Or I don't know about all of them because I haven't done that many statistics, but many of them have gone, well, that didn't work. So they're going back. The point is that, and then we're seeing, you know, we just saw in our own city that a policeman was shot. Now, it turns out the person that might have been schizophrenic, but the truth is, that's horrible. It's absolutely horrible that this kind of stuff happens. But
like you said, at the end of the day, all lives matter. But it shouldn't matter if you highlight someone or a group or whatever and say that without having to get, you know, any kind of slack because you're not highlighting everybody, you know. So
we're getting into some of the weeds, but which is what I thought might happen, which is fine with me. I don't know if it is with you, listener. What does this have to do with living your best life? So I have some thoughts. Do you have any thoughts as to what is this quote? How does this quote affect you, and how would this affect our listener so that they can live their best life?
Pause.
Iggy, edit this out.
Well, I mean, for me,
I can say some thoughts.
You can't. I want you to, but for me, when you're just throwing that out there, like, how is this going to help you live your best life with this topic? You know, for me, I have always been, if you're going to go like the political route or whatever, I love to hear all sides of the story. Always. And this is why I am actually a independent registered voter. I do not side with a right. I do not side with the left, because I take in everything. And I honestly see both sides. I think there are very loud extreme sides, and I don't like to hear either one of those sides, because it's, to me, it's just a lot of noise. And so at the end of the day, living my best life is shifting through it all and just making my own decision based on what I believe in, you know, and not listening to all the noise.
It's so funny that you said that. I wasn't planning on talking about this at all, but there was a guy I just heard on a podcast, and I wish if I knew his name, I would tell you, but he, and it wasn't it was an Instagram post, and he was on a podcast, so I don't know if I could even find it. But what he said is he's been on a 10-year fast from news.
Oh, see, there you go. I haven't listened to the news.
And he said he's been on a 10-year fast, but even reading it, which surprised me because I thought, well, he was going to say he reads it and all that stuff. And the long and the short of it is he goes, I don't think I'm any worse off. He goes, I know for sure I'm at peace. Now, a lot of you are out there going to say, well, man, then who's going to be involved with making decisions and so on. So I'm not sure I'm trying to advocate for that. But what I do believe is when we surround ourselves by, and if you don't know this, I'm assuming you do, but if you're Googling, news things, as soon as you start doing that for any length of time, Google understands what you're looking for, and it's going to feed you exactly what you want to hear. You have to go
to reliable sources that you already like. Okay, for example, I agree with you 100%. I haven't watched the news since 2020. I'm not going to lie. I have not looked up or watched any news since then because I just realized it was all anyway. That said, when I want to know something, like when COVID, all that stuff, when I want to know something, I go to the CDC website. I go to the, I am not going to look up any news station. And like you said, you start Googling stuff, it knows what you're looking for, and it's going to start throwing you the things that you want to see and what you want to hear. And so
DuckDuckGo, go to there because I think that they don't do the same thing as Google. That's for sure. If you want to use a search engine that doesn't monitor all that stuff.
DuckDuckGo is a great one, yeah.
But what I will say is I am a person who likes to be informed. I listen to certain parts of the news. I read certain parts of the news, but I read both Fox and CNN and New York Times. And so I read all of those things. And most of the time I leave there just a tiny bit confused. But in the end, the idea is I just want information. I just want some information. I don't live by it. And I think where I was going to go with living your best life is if you're living by the information that you're receiving, if you're feeding yourself this stuff, if you're constantly bringing in whatever you're going to bring in is what you're going to end up spouting. And what's really difficult is anybody who disagrees with that opinion, you're all of a sudden going to find yourself in conflict. And I think this goes back to even our last podcast, which was about having an open or a growth mindset is if we really go with the mindset of, I really want to approach this not from the standpoint of I want to convince you of something, but what can I learn?
Yeah.
And if we all did that, and really tried to understand other people and understand where they're coming from and understand their heart, and then we wouldn't be saying some of the ridiculous things that we say to each other that just
it's very hard with some people to have those conversations because and you and I are a good example of someone that could have the conversations and even walk away with still a different opinion and be okay with it. Nicole and I got to that place. Nicole and I don't agree on a lot of things.
Nicole, your daughter.
My daughter. Well, we agree on a lot, but there's a lot we don't agree on. And there was a time where we just did not want to talk about it. And now we're at the place where we can talk about it and I will learn from her. And I'm hoping that she'll learn from what I say too. And you can just meet in the middle. You can agree to disagree. And I know that's such a flippant thing to say, but it's true. You can agree that, okay, well, you have that and I have this. There's no way I'm trying to change your mind. I'm just giving you my thought and vice versa. And we can walk away thinking, okay, well, at least I understand her now. At least she understands me.
Right. Well, I'm always fascinated when I learn something new that, or let me backtrack. One of the things I do listen to is the New York Times. What's it called? The Daily. I think it's called The Daily.
And, the Daily Wire?
No, I think it's called The Daily. It's just called The Daily. But what it's interesting is that sometimes I'll read the title and then I immediately have an idea of what it should be. And then they start talking and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is not even close to what I thought. And it just makes me think. To be honest with you, I have to be careful because I don't want to just adopt the New York Times opinion. And I want to think on my own, but I want to hear and digest the information and go, okay, what is really taking place here? And then what do I believe about that? And what differences is going to make?
And you can believe some of the stuff and not the other stuff. You can take away bits and pieces.
That's what's, one of the things I think that's made it difficult in terms of politics and perhaps religion, but politics is hard because we have two parties or three. Okay, you're in the independent party. The six of you are having a great time. But the point is that there's the independent party, or excuse me, there's two major parties, And essentially, if you don't believe in what those two parties, you don't have a voice, because the fact of the matter is we are a country. Now, we moved to Ecuador. We were there for 9 years, and they would have 9 or 10. Now, granted, I'm not trying to say we should be like Ecuador.
Right.
They have a lot of political issues.
I don't have a choice in, but I do have a final choice in the big vote.
Right. But what I'm saying is that why can't we have 10 candidates who represent much more of what, because I don't think that our country has two different opinions.
Yeah.
I think our country has a lot of opinions. And so why don't we have 10 candidates so that really everybody could vote for the person that they genuinely think
is best for the job.
Yes. And for what represents them.
Yeah.
But right now we don't have that. So you have to write, most people vote honestly for the better of two evils. They, in their opinion, they don't vote for who they really want. And it's very interesting
because I mean, obviously we're in politics, so I'm going to say this, but it's very interesting because when I did what do you call it? What do you call that?
You have to use more words.
I know I need more words. No, I did a poll, if you will, a handful of years ago, and I said, what is the reason that you are voting for Joe Biden?
Okay.
And I would say 99.99999 people said because it's not Trump.
Yeah.
There wasn't a reason that they were voting for Joe Biden. It just wasn't Trump.
Yeah.
So saying the lesser of two evils was exactly what was happening there.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, I definitely think that Biden won because it was Trump, not because it was Biden.
Right.
I mean, in other words, if it was somebody else that was more representative of the world, I think that a lot of, I mean, I'm might be isolating because there might be some people who are Trump people and you're MAGA people, and I'm sorry, but the truth is that there are a lot of people who are not, but they're thinking, man, Biden isn't my guy, so I'll vote for Trump. But there's some people who voted for Biden just because they said, I do not want to vote
right.
for
There wasn't a
Trump.
Legit reason for Biden. It was just that he wasn't Trump.
Yeah, he just wasn't Trump. And I think it's like, why not? It would be wonderful. But that's a political discussion.
Yeah.
What really I want to know is what I'm trying to discuss in our podcast right now, and we opened up a lot of cans of worms.
Yes, we did.
All kinds of different worms. Are there different kinds of worms? I doubt it. Okay. But anyway, is how do we live our best life? If you are so stuck and polarized in a particular area and you don't have this mindset of how can I learn? How can I grow? How can I become better? What can I learn from this? And you're, just really stuck out there going for certain things that perhaps are isolating you and making you feel alone. The point is not that I don't want people to have passion, because I really believe that passionate people experience a better life. But there's one thing to have passion, and there's another thing to be, somewhat psychotic, where it's like
polarized.
Polarized.
That word that you used. Yes.
It's like it's like you can't even see the other side.
Exactly.
You can't even understand why the other side would be believing what they believe.
Right.
And I will say there are times when I see certain people and I'm like, it's hard for me to believe that you really believe that when you're all alone, that you actually believe that, especially the political folk that are on the TV. But then there's a lot of people that I think just feel stuck, and they really feel stuck, and they really feel like this country is stuck, and then that makes them feel stuck. And what's going to happen to my future, and what's going to happen when I retire, and what's going to happen, and I feel like for us to live our best life, I want to try and take away the line, this line that
has to be a blurry line.
Yeah, and really just kind of go, okay, why don't we all just understand that ultimately we're trying to work toward the best for our country and for individuals and for people, whether that be the poor, and particularly the poor. To be honest with you, I focus on the poor. I'm not worried about the rich because they're rich. I mean, I'm worried about them psychologically for other reasons. But they have a roof. They're going to have food. They're going to have what they need. But I am worried about certain people that get overlooked in all of this big, grand discussion because it's an issue for me. From a religious standpoint, the issue that I have, you brought up earlier, is I think that sometimes we could look at people and say, oh, well, they're, they not a believer. They are a believer. They are not a believer. They are a believer. And I say, why don't we just look at it as, hey, are they walking in the right direction? Which means, are they doing things that are God-like? Are they doing things that are Christ-like? Are they moving in that direction? And if they are moving in that direction, let's celebrate that.
Yeah.
And let's celebrate each other and let's love on each other. And then let them ask you why in the world you are the way you are.
Right.
Because I think that brings us way more joy
For sure.
than trying to just see people as you're not in my camp.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope that...
I will never understand the whole... I don't know, this is going to open up another can of worms. But, I will never understand the person that says I cannot be in your camp, quote unquote, because I don't believe that you should be gay. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I mean, you might not believe that, but at the same time, it's like, what kind of person does God want you to be? A loving person, or you know what I mean? So
it's incredibly difficult to even remotely imagine God dissing a gay person.
I know.
In any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine God doing that.
Yeah.
And I see him loving, and he's an unconditional lover. And so it actually is completely fascinating to think.
And we should be loving unconditionally.
Unconditionally.
So
even if you disagree with a lifestyle,
yes,
even if you disagree with a lifestyle, and you can't say, well, I love them and then I disagree with them, and then that just really fumbles your mind. I'm going to tell you that I bet you a lot of folk that are out there that perhaps still hold that really, really, really hard line is because you really don't know a gay person. And you really don't. And what I mean is you don't know somebody that you love and you care about, and you realize, oh my gosh, they're really good people.
Yeah.
And I could really love this person. Yeah. And So
and this goes a lot to just like, I don't know if you're wrapping it up or not, but I'm just saying, like, after hearing you, I'm hearing we just need to listen.
Yeah.
We really do. We need to open our ears more versus like using our mouth more. Because if we really do truly listen to what people's hearts are and what their intention is, you take it in, and then,
Yeah, the old scenario of God gave us 2 ears and only one mouth. Yes. So it's like either he was trying to make a statement there.
Yeah.
That, it's really important that we do listen, and not just listen to hear, but listen to understand. Mm-hmm. What is the person saying? What is the actual person saying? And then we need to learn to share in a way that we're sharing what we believe rather than why you're wrong. Mm-hmm. Sharing what we actually believe and what our values are and what is driving this particular decision and what is this motivation, rather than, I can't tell you how many times I have gotten in a discussion, which it's not a lot, but it feels like a lot because when it happens, it's so bizarre. But if I bring up something political or religious, either way, and then instead of responding to what I say, they say, well, what about?
Exactly.
It's like, so you can say something about Trump, for instance, and they go, what about Biden? I go, well, okay, we can talk about Biden. That's not the point. I'm just asking, what do you think about this?
Right.
And it's like, because they're not listening.
They're not. They're already thinking about what they want to say. And that's why it's a really good habit, especially when you're in like deep conversations like this, political, religion, whatever is like a very, very hot topic, if you will. Respond with something like, okay, what I'm hearing you say is this.
Yeah, I love that. That's really good. Yeah, that's actually good in relationships. It's good in everything. But to say, this is what I'm hearing you say, and I think that values the other person. Mm-hmm. It shows that you're actually listening, unless you're just doing it because you're supposed to. Mm-hmm. But if you're really doing it, then what's going to happen is it's going to affect you both from a standpoint of, okay, maybe we can actually have a conversation here.
Communication about it.
And the thing is that this conversation, you and I right now, we went to in this, which is fine. I kind of thought wherever the direction goes, it goes. But the biggest thing that I really wanted to get is, I think there are people that lack peace and are not experiencing like joy. They're not experiencing the fullness of life, this living your best life. And the reason is you're stuck. Mm-hmm. You're so polarized that you can't see the other side. You can't open yourself up. Right. And that could be, religion. It could be politics. It could be a family issue. It could be something you're stuck with your husband, with your kid. It could be just that you're stuck. Yeah. And instead of opening yourself up and saying, okay, what is really going on here? you're not able to experience your best life. So
Right. Very true.
That's
Very
a good ending.
true.
Isn't that a good ending?
I like that.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Well, guys, I hope that this was helpful. This was a pretty meaty discussion that we don't normally go down this route. And but I am going to say that we're glad you're with us. And I'm Benny. I'm at Benny Gonzalez, at Benny Gonzalez on Instagram. Love for you to comment, make any, and please follow us. Please subscribe, do all that stuff.
Yeah. I'm Valerie. I'm at A Daily Dose of Cocoa. And yeah, again, follow, share, and again on Instagram, I think is probably the best place if you have any questions or comments about any of the podcasts.
We are on YouTube too, so you can go on there and you can watch us talk to each other. But you can actually watch it. But there you can actually comment, and we would love to hear your comments. We'd love to, I guess, hear them. We'd love to read them. If you say something that catches our eye, we might make it a topic. So
yeah,
that would be wonderful. So we're glad you're with us, and so thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Val. It's always good to see you.
Make it a great week.
Make it a great week, folks. Ciao.
Bye.